Las Vegas. This is Mark Linker. I'm a teaching and learning librarian at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I'm the convener for the ACRL interest group for academic library services for graduate students. Back up the next slide, please, Donna. Thank you very much for joining us for our third installment of our Listen and Discuss webcast series. As you can see, we're still a new interest group. We're still trying lots of new things, but if you have ideas for things that you want us to explore, please do get in touch with us. There are lots of ways to get in touch with us, as you can see on this slide. We'll be sharing the link for this program today through ALA Connect and on our LibGuide. So you can check it out again later, or you can share with friends. But yeah, thank you for being here. Next slide, please. So our featured presenter today is Donna Harp Ziegenfuss, Associate Librarian for Faculty Services and College of Education Liaison at the University of Utah. The title for her talk today is Studying the Graduate Student Liminal Space to Ease the Transition and the Journey. I had the pleasure of seeing Donna present on an earlier phase of this research project at the LOEX conference in Minneapolis this past May. Although she was talking about aspects of the graduate student transition experience that I had not really thought about deeply before, her findings really rang true for me in an intuitive sort of way, and it deepened my appreciation for the graduate students I work with and the challenges that they face. So I'm really grateful for Donna for her willingness, for sharing her research with us in our interest group in this forum today. I think we're all going to learn a lot. Next slide, please. So here's the plan for today. We'll start off with about 15 minutes of presentation from Donna. As questions occur to you, please do share them in the chat feature of Zoom. At the 15-minute mark, we will check in with my co-convener, Jeff Johnson of the University of Denver, who will share some of those questions with Donna. After an interlude of about 5 minutes for Q&A, Donna will continue her presentation until she wraps it up at around the 40-minute mark, when we'll have a lot more time for Q&A. After about 10 minutes, I'll come back on to wrap some things up and make a few brief announcements. And we've added a little bit of cushion time, which is, I think, good when a bunch of enthusiastic people get together to talk about graduate education. You know, who knows what might happen. So it's good to have a little bit of time. Good. Okay, again, thank you for making time for this at this very busy time of the year. And thanks to Donna for sharing her excellent research. And now it's over to you, Donna.
Sorry, I have a copy of this at the beginning and also the end. So well, you'll see this again at the end. All right. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I have the wrong presentation up. I should have gone through my slides. Oh, dear.
Okay.
Sorry about that, everybody.
Oh, that's great.
All right. So today, thanks for attending this session today. We're going to talk about how librarians can fit into and support the graduate student liminal research journey. So the agenda that I'm going to talk about today is about some preliminary research that I've been conducting to better understand the graduate student experience. And then we're going to talk about some of the theoretical frameworks that I came across in my research and how that may also help you think about your own institutional context and help enhance the graduate student support you provide at your institution. And I'll also present some lessons at the end that I've learned across my own journey of working with graduate students. So I hope you'll take away from this session today some concepts and ideas that will help you go beyond just teaching library research tools to graduate students and think more holistically about the student experience. And I hope you'll reflect on how you might do you might classify what you do more as a consultancy than as just creating a service. Okay, so at the University of Utah, we have about 24,000, almost 25,000 undergraduates and over 8,000 total students. And these are from last year's fact sheet. I don't have access to the new fact sheet for this semester. I am the College of Education Liaison, which means that there are about 594 graduate students within the College of Education distributed across 6 different majors. Over the past 2 years, I've been transitioning into becoming the library liaison for the College of Ed. Previously, my colleague was the College of Education librarian for several decades, and I only took this over after her retirement. It was a tough act to follow. Just a very few quick slides about what we offer for graduate students in the library. We offer graduate student events. An example of that is our graduate student social that we hold each semester. And we hold that in our graduate reading room. We lure the students in with sushi, and then they come into the room to see what the room is like. And then we also have them sign up for access to the room so that they can get access on their ID cards so that they can come in and use the room whenever they need to, when the library is open. We also offer a dissertation and thesis writing boot camp. And we offer this over fall and spring break every year, where we provide breakfast. It's a collaboration with the graduate school, and they actually provide the money for the breakfast. And then they come to the library, they have breakfast, and then we ask that they commit about 5 hours of writing for 4 days over their break. We also have a family reading room, which a lot of our graduate students utilize who have children, so they can bring your kids in and they can play with toys and read books, and there's spaces for students to work with printing and group rooms within the same space. And then we also offer some additional new services, patent searching support for students, especially in engineering, that are working on patent work, qualitative and quantitative research methods support. And then we partner with the Writing Center, which is part of our graduate reading room. So we have graduate level writing fellows who help students with their writing. And then we also partner with the thesis office, who encourages students to connect with the thesis office during their process so that they don't get to the end and then it's very stressful trying to get your thesis formatted correctly. So I've been in the library for a little over 7 years now, and I've been at the University of Utah for the past 10 years. I relocated here from the East Coast. I'm originally from the Philadelphia area. And as in many cases in the library, change is kind of what spurred my interest in trying to learn more about graduate student needs. So less students were coming to scheduled face-to-face workshops that we offer in the library for doing literature reviews, disciplinary database tutorials, discovery tools, etc. And there was an increase in our consultations and in-class workshops. This semester has been crazy so far. I've taught 17 one-shot classes in graduate classes and conducted 49 graduate consults. So since I've been in the College of Ed, I've been really thinking about how to get plugged in to that department. Even though I have an EDD in education, up until 2 years ago, I never really connected with the culture of the College of Ed, which was really a critical piece for me to learn about the culture in order to be able to support the students there. So there's been a change in our leadership in our Graduate Services Committee, which we have in the library. And there's more of a focus on the library space and updating the space and redecorating the space. But my priority has been, from my own experience, in helping the students get through this stressful, liminal space of graduate school. So I started collecting data and revisiting archive data, and I'm planning to roll out a needs assessment at the end of this semester, just for my College of Education, but I hope to apply that to other departments around campus. So I looked at our Libqual data, which was pretty old, from 2012. And there were many more positive responses from the graduate students than negative compared to the other populations that we surveyed. There was also a good percentage increase in the number of responses we got from graduate students in 2012. And we haven't done Libqual since then, but I'm currently working on taking a look at, we ran the MISO survey last year, which is a combination of library and technology survey for the library. And I'm looking at that data right now. I'm analyzing that data. We also saw that a good percentage of the surveys, 33%, were open-ended questions that the graduate students gave us some really good additional information on. So these 4 categories of the Libqual survey, I coded all the comments according to those, and you can see that library as place and affective service are the 2 large areas for the graduate students. Also did some surveys in our boot camp. So beginning in 2014, we only had about 30 students that attended our boot camp. Now we get over 100 registrations, but usually we only have about 60 or 70 that actually come. Students come from all over campus, all different disciplines, not just the College of Ed. And they've reported that dedicating time to writing at boot camp when they're not teaching or conducting research is a really great way to get ahead and get started and caught up, as some of them told us. One gentleman who came to boot camp was really funny. He told me that his daughter knew that he didn't have school this week and she wanted to stay home and play hooky with him. And he told her he had to go to boot camp and it was really important that he was there. So it was kind of funny to talk to him about how he could get to boot camp. It's a great way to meet graduate students one-to-one and get the word out about what we do. And it's also a great way for the students to meet each other cross-disciplinary. So during breakfast, what students find out are that just because they're an English major and someone is an engineering major, that there's a lot in common with their dissertation process and the research process. And that was really great. The only big complaints that we got from the survey was about the food, that there wasn't enough variety and there were too many carbs and not enough gluten-free options. But actually I take that kind of as a win-win in that we had a lot of students that came for 4 days and got some writing done. And at the end, we always ask them about the progress that they made. In addition to that, 1 year at boot camp, we interviewed 17 graduate students from across different disciplines. We recorded the interviews about 30 minutes, transcribed them and analyzed them using NVivo software. There were 946 codes, and of those codes, 23.2% were about research and dissertation anxiety. That was the first theme. The theme with the highest number of codes was related to them discussing what they needed for support, which was over 50% of the codes. They also talked about the need for making connections, and not just with people, but with resources and how could they talk to their advisor about something. So there was a lot of discussion about connections and also a need to feel that they were making progress across their graduate program. A lot of them felt that it was such a large undertaking that it was difficult for them to figure out whether they were actually making progress or not. And that's kind of an understandable thing when you're working on something for so many years. So here are 4 quotes, one from each of the 4 different themes that emerged from the interview. So I'll give you a few minutes to take a look at those. And we can come back to these. See the one about librarians and the need for support? It helped that librarians are not just providing resource, but also a supportive approach with a non-judgmental attitude. That was awesome. And then after looking at all the data, the archive data and the older data that I had, the reason I've been going through all of this is because I'm working on this new needs assessment and I'm trying to evaluate where I am, is I went back to the literature to look at how the literature aligned to those 4 themes. So in qualitative research, this is common practice where once you identify the themes that emerge from your textual data, that you go back to the literature, because there's always things that you didn't see because you didn't know you were looking for them. So I found several themes. These are the first 3. So prior research skills and lack of preparedness. Some of the faculty that I have spoken to feel that these are graduate students and they already know what they're doing, and I don't need to come to their class and tell them about library research because they already know. And what the literature actually says is that they do know how to conduct research, but that but not at the higher graduate level research. There's also literature that talks about how students overestimate their research expertise. And I heard a lot of that in the interviews where students would say, oh, I thought I knew what I was doing until I actually started to do it. And then I realized I had no idea what I was doing. Library research anxiety. I've done some previous research on transfer students coming from the community college to the University of Utah. And this was a big theme there, in that community college students feel that they already know how to do research. They learned all about the research at the community college, and then they get up to the U and they find out they don't know the resources because they're different. So it creates a lot of anxiety in that they thought they knew what they were doing, but then they really didn't. There's also that academic imposter feeling where graduate students are kind of in this liminal area between going to graduate school and thinking about where they're going after graduate school, and feeling like they don't know enough and that they're being an imposter in their field. There's also literature about how graduate students, sometimes perfectionism and a focus on their study habits can cause procrastination. So these are really motivated students, and a lot of cases motivated transfer students, graduate students who haven't been at our institution for their undergrad, but they come here for graduate school. And they are really focusing on those A's. I just met with a student this week who told me, I'm meeting with you because I need all A's in my graduate program, not like undergrad where the grades weren't really as critical. A third theme is about lack of social support and connection. So all the students that I talked to said they felt connected during their course time. So a lot of our programs have cohorts of students that move through courses together, but then after they finish their courses, they're kind of on their own to do their individual research, and they feel alone and isolated. They also talked about the importance of having peer-to-peer discussion and information. And I also found a really great article by Eddie and Solomon from 2017 that talked about this consultancy model for library services, which was really interesting for me. The last theme was about lack of knowledge about library services. And you know how we are. We promote our services everywhere. We have flyers. We go around campus. We do workshops. But for some reason, students just don't know. Even faculty don't know. Sometimes when I go into a course and I'm telling students how to connect Google Scholar to our library resources, the faculty are like, I didn't know you could do that. So I think that there's a lack of knowledge always around library services. There's also what some of the researchers called rusty research skills for graduate students who haven't been in school for a while. And now they're coming back to school to get their master's or get their doctoral degree, so that they're pretty rusty. I met with one student last week at 7:05 after her evening class. She was a special ed student who said, when I was in college for my undergrad, we still had card catalogs, and now I really don't know what I'm doing. There's also a lot of disciplinary differences in databases that students don't know which database is the right database for their research. And then you have the constant change and constant revisions that are happening to library resources. So this semester, the Thursday night before our Monday classes started, they changed the front end of our website so that the catalog looked completely different. And I had a whole slew of emails over the weekend from students who are just like, why does this look different? What's going on? Where do I find this? So these are all issues that are constantly occurring. So it's not just using the resources, but the anxiety of learning about the resources and being able to adapt to changes with the resources. And then the last thing that I was looking at, we're looking for theories or some type of theoretical framework or conceptual framework that I could use to help support students. And I found a whole ton of theories, not all in library world, but also outside of library world. And there's going to be two that I'm going to focus on here, which are Koufos Model of Information Source Process and Bergs model. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop actually here. And Jeff, if you want to jump in.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Donna. And just as we're getting into some questions, I'm hoping maybe we can put this these resources up on the LibGuide along with the recording.
Yes, definitely.
So that people can access those. One question that came up here from Melissa is, are there boot camps for online students? And there is the question allows that might be coming later in the presentation. Has anything come up with folks who can't make it to campus for the boot camp?
No, we do not have services for online boot camp, but I do meet with graduate students. I met with a graduate student who's at Ohio State University now, who did his master's at the U, so I knew him through the master's program. And I do consultations, you know, through online, through Skype or through WebEx as a way, but we don't have a special provision for online students. That's a really good and interesting question. I'll have to think about that.
Okay, so Michael wanted to know about, could you possibly explain a little bit more about the library focus during the boot camps? You talking about library services and research help, or are you covering other topics?
Okay, so during the boot camps, originally we started out by offering workshops first thing in the morning, so that each day we had different workshops. We taught citation management, we taught NVivo, we taught searching in specific databases. And the students in the surveys said they just wanted to do their research and they didn't want to have workshops at this time. So since we asked them to spend about 5 hours, sometimes now we offer workshops later in the day, like after 2 o'clock, after they've done their writing. So if you want to stick around for another hour, we're going to do an EndNote today, or we're going to do a Zotero. We do offer a few on request, but the students complained that they felt like they wanted to go to the workshop, but then they felt guilty for not writing. So the real focus is writing, but what we do is we have a registration form, and then we get all the students to register, and then we distribute the names to the liaisons so that the liaison librarians can contact those students that are coming so that they know the librarians will be here and we can answer questions. So what I've been doing for the past about 2 years is I follow up with students that request additional research assistant during that time. The biggest request we get is for writing support, and the graduate writing fellows are graduate students. So they're not doing writing support over break, just like a regular graduate student, they're on break. So we've been trying to figure out how to do that. We did have this past semester someone who is a librarian in our medical library who was in Rochester, New York, come in virtually and talk about LaTeX and formatting your dissertation in LaTeX for engineering students. But we don't have any set schedule like we used to have in the beginning because the students weren't coming to the workshops. But they can request appointments and consultations and workshops, and then we offer them.
Okay, and so Donna, you addressed some challenges related to writing support. There's another question about who exactly provides support for the qualitative data analysis software. Do you have somebody in the library, or?
Yes, so in the library we have 10 copies of NVivo and 10 copies of Atlas TI. So since they are library software on our computers, and they're installed on a server, so you can sit down at any computer in the library and use that software, but only 10 people can use it at a time. When I came to the library, I'm a qualitative researcher, and I was surprised that we had in vivo and no one knew how to use it. So I've been offering in vivo classes since I came 7 years ago. We used to have 4 copies of software, and now we have 10 copies, so we're getting there. I have a colleague, Lorelei Rutledge, who provides support for Atlas TI, faculty that are using that. And I also have some medical faculty lately who are using DDoS and doing coding in the cloud. So I'm involved now in learning that because I'm getting called into those projects. So this is something that I'm going to talk about as we go through lessons learned, is that thinking about where your expertise lies and how that can be a value-added support to the library. So I would say I do about half of the consultations that I do are around qualitative research methods design and using in vivo. Just because now everyone knows that I do it. So I also do support for research groups. I'm working with a law group right now, law faculty member who's writing a book, and she has a cadre of graduate students, law students, who are learning how to use in vivo to make some graphics for her book. So I meet with them as a group. So yes, as a librarian, I am providing also qualitative research support. For the statistics part, we have a stats TA that we hire through the library that has office hours. So students that are doing statistical work can make an appointment with Jing, and she will help them with their statistical support.
All right, excellent. So Mark seemed pretty serious about that agenda. So do you want to continue with part 2? I'm just funning, Mark. And then we can get into some more Q&A toward the end. So keep the questions coming, folks. Thanks for those of you who asked. And I'll turn it back over to you, Donna.
Okay, great. All right, so after doing the lit review, what I really focused on was trying to find some type of model that would really help me think about how I could provide support at all these different levels. And this Koufos model, information search process model from 1991, not a new model, but what I really liked about this model is it's a much more holistic approach to thinking about how people do information searching. So at the bottom, the actions, the physical is the actual searching part, but it also takes into account the feelings and affective aspects of searching and the cognitive and the thought part of searching. Like for the feelings and affective, like a lot of times we think, oh, we'll just give them all the information up front and they go off and they do their work. And this model actually claims that in the beginning, there's uncertainty. And then people, once they start searching, feel very optimistic, like they know what they're doing, but then they hit the exploration phase and they go back into confusion and frustration. So this model helped me to see that kind of having touch points across the process with students was really important, because they may leave and act like they really know what they're doing, but then they hit mid-cycle and they don't. But the problem that I had with this model is that I had trouble trying to think about how to implement this with the findings from my interviews. So then I found Slush Bergs transition theory, which is not a library theory. It's actually a theory. Slushberg is a counselor, psychology counseling faculty member. And this one really hit home for me because this actually made it concrete for me. These 4 S's, self, situation, support, and strategies, that really gave me something that I could think about. So how could I support the individual self? How could I support the situation? And how could I provide strategies? This model also looks at the transition of as being a liminal process. You're coming into a transition, you go through the transition, and then you leave. And this is exactly what graduate school is. So I think that this is really a useful model. Coming into a transition, you have different types of transitions. And for example, a student coming into a graduate program is making a deliberate transition. They're deciding that they're going to graduate school because they either want another job, or they want more credentials, or they want a pay increase, or they're going to change jobs. But while they're in that transition, they might have a new child, a baby. They might have a spouse with a medical issue. They might have issues with aging parents. And all of those are not anticipated transitions. So this was another thing that helped me to think about how these graduate students are often dealing with multiple things in their lives. Today, undergraduates are dealing with a lot of these transitions as well. But I think at the graduate level, the stakes are so high. You have those high-stake exams, and you have dissertations that you have to pass, your comprehensives, and you have to defend your dissertation, that this just becomes a little more stressful. So I took the four, going down the left side of the screen, are the four themes from my research, from the interview research, and then crossed those with the four S's across the top from Schlossberg's theory. So for example, in the self, the personal and psychological stage. In this stage, this would be where the person, the individual graduate student, is having anxiety or feeling that they're not competent, or will they ever get through this program? So I could actually link what I got from the data, the coding and the comments from the students, and put them into this matrix in these individual cells. For the need for support and relationships and community, if you go across the matrix, looking for other people in the same boat as themselves for support. And this was one of the comments that we got from Bootcamp. One of the biggest takeaways was, oh my God, there's a lot of people on campus that are going through the same thing that I'm going through. And it's that community piece, which is where we can support. Making connections, and then the situational place, the role, the timing, the triggers that are happening in the context of doing your graduate work. So this is where I think the connections are so important. So they start as a cohort, and they develop, a lot of the programs that I work with have cohorts, and that's how I get a lot of my consultation referrals is, you know, Susie Jones told me I have to talk to you, that she came to see you, and in a half an hour, she felt much better about what she was doing. So it's that cohort connection, I think, that's really important in the situation, and how we can try to encourage that. So for example, I go up to the College of Ed building now, and I do my office hours up there because I meet groups of students working together, and I also run into a lot of faculty, and I feel like I can do a better connection and support in the situation within their building. So instead of having the students come to the library, instead of that pull aspect of librarianship, I'm doing a lot more push out into the College of Education culture. I'm learning about what the students do and when they're there and how things are going on, and that's a better fit for me. The feelings of progress and strategies. So here, when they work with each other, they can help each other go through stages of the research that, so somebody may have already defended their proposal, and they can help speak to that feeling of progress to the other students that are just going there. There were not as many strategies in the data, in the interview data, as in the other three S's. So I need to really think about how to create more strategies to help them with that coping response. And that's kind of where I am now. So what I've done to change how I teach and consult is I go beyond the library searching skills. I teach project management skills, and I make recommendations. Like I use Trello online, and I have 3 columns, a to be done, a doing, and a done column. And then I move my projects across those 3 columns, and I tell students, and when I move them into the done column, it's awesome. I can see progress. I teach digital curation skills, how to organize the PDFs that you're using for your research, how to name them, we use Box, how to organize your PDFs when you're doing your lit review so it makes more sense and helps you write so it's not so overwhelming. I also talk a lot about the dissertation project process and expectations. This is what your doctoral advisor is expecting, and this is why, and this is what you can do, and these are the questions you could ask her. And I guess because I've gone through the process, I can share my experiences as a doctoral student, and then I can share my qualitative research expertise as well. So students may, now I actually have faculty saying, well, this is what I think you should do, but why don't you go talk to Donna and you know, talk to her about it. See what she has to say. Are we on the same page? Or maybe she has another idea. One student came to me a few semesters ago and said, I found this great product online called temi.com, and I can put up my audio files and get a natural language processing transcript for 10 cents a minute. And she was a poor doctoral student, so she was like, this was awesome. I didn't have the money to have somebody transcribe, but it helped me. So I share all of that with all the other students. And then I also try to provide social support and connections by developing better listening skills. So when I meet the first time with a student, I say, so what are you having trouble with? What do you need help with? What can I help you with? And kind of approach it more as a personal consultation as opposed to, here's all the resources, use what will be more useful to you. I'm also doing my own research around what I'm calling as librarians as boundary crossers, because I feel like I'm always crossing into everyone's research and across departments and across disciplines, and I feel like a broker. So whenever I can help connect people with other people on campus, like I had a student that was doing some international education work, and I connected her with this writing professor that I knew who had just been in Asia to teach some international courses. I said, you should meet with him and talk to him about his experience. So I connect as many people as I can, and then I use my students as well. So this week I'm trying to do some assessment work with our undergraduate general education group, and we're trying to get departments to do some assessment plans. And I said, oh, I have a graduate student in the College of Business. They're like, well, there's all these departments in business and no one's posting their assessment plans. And I said, I have a graduate student that I know who's working there now. I'll contact her. And she connected me with the person that I needed to talk to, and then we had an appointment. So I didn't have to figure that out on my own. I could just say, hey, you know, who should I talk to in the business school? So this relationship and this brokering works both ways, and it develops a stronger relationship. So if you think about where you could have touch points across the graduate experience in your institution, this is so much of a process in transition. Students are unsure of themselves. They're making things up as they go. This liminal space, as discussed with Land and Mayer about threshold concepts, is so critical to this process, and to help them see that this is a process, you're going through this, but it's going to be okay. You're going to come out the other side and it'll be fine. And then how you can take these 4 things of self-situation strategies and social support to help students where they need it, which would be really helpful. So the lessons that I learned are I had to be a lot more flexible. And this kind of comes back to that distance learning question. So a lot of my students are principals, assistant principals, coming back to get doctoral degrees, EDD degrees, and they're not on campus, and they're at school districts maybe 30, 40 miles away from campus. So I've been putting resources online, and I started, my version 1 was just to create a huge website, and you'll have these links in the LibGuide, so you'll be able to go and look at these. And I just created under topics, a lot of OERs. Here, use these, go through these, see if any of these will be helpful for you. And right now, this semester, we just started planning some self-directed modules in Canvas. And these are both Canvas courses, but they're open, so you can go and see them without a login. In a way that, so I have a professor who said, now, you know, can you do a preliminary qualitative, what is qualitative research module, and walk people through the coding process, so that then I could then work with them as their advisor more in a direct way. Once they come to me, they'll know more, and I won't have to go through the same introductory thing each time. And I'm like, sure, we can do that. So we're going to try to do that with a lot of different topics through these self-directed modules, and I'm working with a group of librarians. The other important thing is the campus partnerships. So I just met with the graduate associate dean the other day, and I told her I was doing this webinar, which she couldn't attend unfortunately today, but she said, but I'm going to look at the recording. And she said, she went to your LibGuide page and she was like, there's a lot of information here that this would be really helpful for us to know. So sharing information with your partners across campus, sharing library information with the graduate school and library information with the writing department is all really useful. Oh, and that's it for me. How are we time-wise, Jeff? Are we pretty good? Yes. All right, so I do have a whole bunch of references here. And then we'll come to this page, which let's discuss. So Jeff, if you want to pick back up again with questions.
Sure. So if anyone has any thoughts on these discussion questions on the slide, as librarians, what can we do to help graduate students cope with the stress of conducting graduate level research? Or how can we better scaffold graduate students across their liminal research journey? Or it looks like we have a question coming in from Victor, so maybe let's start there.
Okay, great.
So you mentioned working with the graduate college and making connections with graduate students, but how do you target or communicate with the graduate advisors or graduate council, the faculty who serve with serve as graduate student coordinators in their department? And how do you contact, message, or target them?
So in the College of Ed, what I'm finding is being up in that building has allowed me to do that. So for this semester, I connected with 2 graduate advisors and graduate administrators within the College of Ed for 2 different departments. And they invited me to their orientation. It was on a Saturday because they're graduate students and they are working. But I think by connecting, being up in that building, I get to meet people and connect with people in a way that I didn't before. I was up doing office hours, so I have office hours there, and I do them late in the day up till 6:30 at night on Monday, and then on appointment. That I had one of the administrative assistants for one of the graduate programs said, oh, could you come and do something just specifically on citation management tools for a group of students who are asking questions and they want to have some additional support? So she said, I'll buy the food and we'll do it in the evening and you can come and we can talk about citation management. So I think the more that I push out into the department, the better off I am. Through the graduate school, there's an associate dean and some administrative support within the graduate school that I try to connect with on a regular basis, because they offer information sessions and come and learn about funding and do this. And we really like to go and be available. So there was a funding event and another librarian and I went and did some tabling at that event to promote what we do with graduate students. So I think there's not just one way, but there's a lot of different ways and how you can get into those graduate cultures around campus would be the best advice that I would have.
Thank you. So next question coming in from Michael. Do you have any advice about how to conduct a needs assessment of library services for graduate students? Or could you point us to some useful sources?
Yes, so there are some needs. If you do some Google hacks and do PDF : and library needs assessment, you might be able to find some stuff that's already out on the web. But what my approach is I've looked at a lot of the data that I already have, my Libqual, my interviews, my surveys from Bootcamp, any data that you would collect around the library related to graduate students. I'm building my survey based on that data. So for example, what came out of that research are those 4 S's, the self, the situation, the support, and the strategies. And I'm going to design my needs assessment around those 4 areas. I'd be glad to share that with anyone. And if anyone's interested in creating a survey like that, I'd be glad for any collaborators that want to do that. So I really prefer to ground my needs assessment in data that I already have. And then what I plan to do is do a survey. So I have about 90 some contacts that I've made over the past just 2 semesters of graduate students that I'm going to send the survey out to about their experience of consultations and workshops and my class work with them, and then try to build from that. You could also do an environmental scan. You could look at other institutions. So we're in the Pac-12, and I always go to the Pac-12 and I look at what is Cal doing with their graduate students? What is University of Arizona doing with their graduate students? And I look at that and help to form those questions. Another piece of advice for needs assessment is to think about, in the end, after graduate students go through the program, whether it's a master's or an EDD or a PhD, what do you want those students to know, to be able to do, or what kind of attitudes or abilities should they have? And then work backwards. I'm a real backward design person. And then think, well, if this is where I want them to be when they leave, what do I have to provide? And what could I ask them about what they need for these areas? So if you have any questions about that, let me know and I can filter some resources your way.
And so here's a great response to the first question on the discuss slide from Victor, talking about making training sessions more open and social in nature and asking students to share their experiences.
That's great.
And that often students don't realize that their troubles are shared by most. They feel better when they realize they're not alone. That's
right. Exactly. That's definitely what I have found as well. Like our boot camp, they're like, I didn't realize that, like, you know, these people have the same issues as we have. So they discuss their advisor issues with each other. They're all going through the same thing. She wants me to do this, or he expects me to do that. And they can speak from their own experiences. And that's really awesome. And the more informal, the better. So when I go up to the College of Ed, they have a thing called the Research Hub, and it's this big room with comfy chairs and study rooms and tables. And I just go in there and hang out. And I talk to people, and I've got to know the cafe people, and I talk to them all the time. So I think the more informal you are, I get people like stopping, oh, I'm on my way to class, and I knew you were here today. Could you answer this quick question for me about this database I'm having trouble with? So I get a lot of informal kind of drop-in stuff, which I think is really important. That informal aspect is really important.
So Donna, early on in the session, Mark put a question on there, and I've been sort of thinking about something similar. So you were saying that more than 50% of your responses to your survey were about support,
yes,
or services.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned that at the boot camp, they don't want the workshops. So that rings very true to my experience. So I guess one thing that I'm curious about and that Mark was asking about is what kinds of support were they specifically asking for? And was there anything that surprised you? And then could you talk a little bit more about how you think about how to meet those needs in ways other than workshops? And you've talked about this a little bit, but.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a lot of molded questions in there. So let's talk about what was in the data first. So their support is support for, so I think the biggest thing that I learned is that they don't ask questions. And they don't feel comfortable asking questions unless you develop a relationship with them. And that makes it easier for them to ask questions. So they don't even know really what they want to ask. Like when I do a one-shot, they don't really know what they want to ask. It's not until after the workshop that I get follow-ups a lot. Like you talked something about this and I didn't realize that this was really something that I needed to know, and now I need to know it. So they want support, but they don't really want to ask for it. And one of the quotes that I had on that one slide was about a student that said, I don't want to look stupid, I'm a graduate student. And if I don't know the answer, the one student said, then I should be able to find it myself. And then they get very frustrated. So they want support for library resources. They want support when they can't find what they're looking for. And some of them don't even know about ILL, interlibrary loan. And some of them eventually, you know, learn about that, and that solves a lot of those support issues. Like, what do I do when I can't find resources? Some of them don't know about logging on off campus to get full text, so they think they have to pay for everything. So I get a lot of the comments from the one survey was about, you know, we can't get what we need in our discipline because we have to pay for everything. But if they knew what they could do to go through and get that, and that's not an easy thing to tell them. But what I've been finding is when I meet with a student, I try to embed some of this support information in a way of our conversation, even though in a more informal way that it might make some helpful meaning to them. And I created a flyer, a color flyer that I sent to all the faculty, the PDF flyer, and the one advisor from the College of Ed said to me, could I put this like on our monitor system? So in the College of Ed building, they have like plasma screens up on the wall with all the events and lectures going on. And my flyer is there now, and it filters around with all the other events. And I've had 3 faculty that have contacted me. I sent them the PDF. I do this, I can give you this support and that support and qualitative support, and I can meet with you one-on-one, and I can come to your class. And afterwards, he said, you know, I saw your flyer on the monitor. And I'm like, I sent you a copy in your email. So sometimes it's just a method of different ways. Now I leave copies of my color flyer in the hub on tables so that people can pick it up. And in there, I list everything that I do. These are all the support things. Here's the link that will take you to my LibGuides for education. This will take you to this. And it's almost like I feel like I'm overdoing, but I think the more that you can do, the better would be my solution to that. Because they don't really know what they don't know, and they don't really know what they need until they need it. And then they need support, but they don't know that you already told them this, or they don't see a connection to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
So I think, Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks to you both, and thanks especially to Donna. Wow, it's great to see how your research is really influencing your practice. So it's definitely a treat for us, and we look forward to hearing more about what you're doing as you continue your investigations there. So thank you so much. A few announcements. So we do have a feedback form for this program. I believe Jeff has popped it into the chat. You can see the link there.
Yep, there
it's also on the slide now, so perfect. Please let us know what you think about how we did today, and also ideas for future programs. That helps us a lot. Also, we will not have anything going for the interest group at this year's ALA midwinter meeting. In the past, we hosted a forum for brief presentations about services to graduate students, and we're going to continue that tradition at ALA Annual this summer, but not at midwinter. Instead, we're starting something really new. We have a task force working to develop a process for collecting and celebrating notable contributions to the literature on graduate students and the academic libraries who serve them. It'll be something like a top 10 for the year. Again, it's just the beginning phases, but as you do your reading, keep in mind things that look really good to you, and we'll send out a call for nominations and asking for help for reviewing those in the spring. Also, I wanted to take a minute to let you know about a really good conference that's coming up. Transforming Libraries to Serve Graduate Students will take place March 16th and 17th, Kingsport, Tennessee. I can't really think of a more relevant conference for a group like ours, so it should be a good one. The call for proposals just went out. Proposals are due November 25th. They have a very wide range of options for topics and for presentation formats, so you should really check that out. If you have questions, please reach out to Wendy Doucette at East Tennessee State University. She's got a special email for her conference business, transforming2020@outlook.com. That is transforming2020@outlook.com. All right. So thank you again, Donna, for sharing your research with us. And thank you to my partners in crime, Jeff Johnson and Hannah Rempel-Gashow. And thanks to Alois for setting us up with this wonderful forum today. And thanks you all for being a part of it. I look forward to hearing from you soon.
And I put a link to the LibGuide again at the end here. And I also put a link to the conference.
Oh, sweet.
A couple chats below that.
Okay, great.
So good.
And then feel free to reach out to me, anyone, if you have additional questions. I'll be glad to share anything that I have. If you're interested in a needs assessment and you want to be part of my process that I'm going through right now, I would be glad to have collaborators. I'm just trying to figure out what additional information the students can give me about how I could help support them that I haven't found in the literature and I haven't found in my archive data. Okay.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. See ya.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Alois.
Thank you.
You're welcome.